Zeeshan, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe you could start off with like a quick introduction about yourself, or just kind of who you are, where you're at right now.
Yeah, my name is Zeeshan. Most people call me Z, and I'm a Canadian-Pakistani filmmaker. So originally, actually, I grew up in Texas, which is where you live, where Zane lives.
Yeah.
And when I was 13, I moved to Canada, and I did life here in my teenage years, and ended up going to pharmacy school for university. And I kind of just realized I wanted to live a life where I was living it to the fullest, and I loved making films. So I had gone to film school, and I got myself into wedding videography, and I did that for a decade. And then I traveled the world for a couple of years. And now my focus is, mainly doing commercial work, like as stuff that you would see on TV. Um,
Yeah.
I don't have anything on TV yet, but that's the goal. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah. And then you've also been doing things on YouTube as well, right? Recently.
Yes, I just started a YouTube channel. So if you want to be my 71st view on YouTube, please go check that out. So yeah, slowly but surely.
Yeah. What? Why? I know you said that you went to or filmmaking school or a videography school, or
Yeah, film school. Yeah.
yeah. So what? Why did you start in like weddings, and was that kind of like concurrently, or were they like kind of separate
Yeah,
in your head?
I just had someone ask me for help
Hmm.
to film a wedding. And in Vancouver, there's a large Punjabi population here. So the wedding that I shot was a East Indian Punjabi wedding,
Hmm.
and I kind of got introduced to that world. And at the time I entered, there wasn't a lot of people, at least in the Vancouver area, who were doing like very cinematic
Hmm.
wedding videos, like over, I guess it's been 12, 13 years now when I
Yeah.
did that. So it was a very different world back then. And, the cameras were still big, and DSLR cameras were just getting introduced. So I was just uniquely good at making those videos. And
Hmm.
I kind of just found my footing there. And next thing you know, 10 years passed by.
Yeah. But you like I guess from what I since we've known each other for basically 30 plus years. I know that like it didn't just end up being like you just doing the filming yourself, right? Like you ended up making a fairly successful company out of it.
Yeah, that's right. So I was very fortunate to have good people along the way who helped me build our brand that we have now. And I- as much as it was me who started it, it wouldn't have
Mhm.
been possible without the people that helped me along the way. So that success belongs to all of us. It's not just me. So yeah, I've had some talented people guide me. I've had some powerful people. Um, you know, uh, yeah. It wasn't me, but yeah, I did end up making a company who ended up doing quite well in the industry, and is still doing quite well in the industry. I've stepping out of that role now, but it's still
Mhm.
there, and it's still functioning. So that train will keep chugging along till
Yeah.
the people on there, or when it will take its course at some point. But as for now, it's still doing well.
Yeah. So how was like the transition from going from like wedding videography, and then you spent like I guess a good chunk of time after that like traveling the world. So how did that like transition come to play?
Yeah. So I mean, the whole reason I got into filmmaking was to do what I love,
Hmm.
and at some point, I realized it was no longer about what I love, and it kind of just turned into like this business money making type of passion, and that wasn't where I wanted to be in life. I was no
Hmm.
longer like enjoying myself going to weddings it became really stressful. I was burnt out. And when I was younger, I told myself I wanted to go travel the world and experience
Hmm.
all different cultures and see all these amazing places that I would read about in books. And
Hmm.
I was like 26, 27, and I realized I haven't even left Vancouver at this point.
Yeah.
So I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I spending so much of my youth working so hard? Like, what's the point of working so hard if you're not going to enjoy the time that you do have? And at that time, it was a big shift in my life. So, I scaled down and I started to travel slowly. And at one point, I realized that I wanted to do more traveling while I was still, younger.
Yeah.
So I was like,
While you still had the knees to be able to do it.
yeah, well, I still have knees to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's what I did. I took time off and I did what I wanted to do and what my heart was telling me to do.
So did the places you end up going like be end up being that like or fulfilling that kind of like urge or kind of satisfying the magic of it all, or how did they
Uh, the only way I can sum that up is there's this quote that I really like that says, "The only peace you'll find at the top of a mountain is the one you bring with you."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So
but
yeah,
it
no,
took me all that traveling to realize what that quote meant and to find that peace from within.
yeah,
And no matter where you are in life, whether it's Vancouver or Paris or Bali, you're only going to be happy as you are within, and exterior change isn't going to
yeah,
make any difference to your life as much as you think it might.
yeah,
Sometimes it does, but yeah.
yeah. There's a I'm forgetting what movie it was in, but there's a Bollywood song, Kabira. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think like roughly like the lyrics translate to like you travel the seven seas, but why does the thirst still remain?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. I guess like kind of going to like the idea of peace, like I guess what since the it was I guess did you end up like figuring out like internally what the like that piece was, or is that something that you like feel like you have now, or is that something that you are still kind of searching for? Or
Yeah, I mean, you're always figuring it out, like, because in life, like, so many challenges arise, and all of a sudden your piece is challenged.
hmm.
But now I have like the awareness and the tools to be like, oh, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was different. I didn't know how to cope with it. I would take it out on other people, or
Hmm.
you get into these negative habits that you might have that aren't good for you,
Yeah.
to deal with that stress or that thing that might happen in your life that disrupts that peace that you thought you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
So
for like I know for myself like one of the things like the Stoic quote about don't wish for things to be a certain way but to wish for things as they are, right?
yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's very well said. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also like the thing that I think is one of the hardest things to actually do, especially like when you're driving on the road, someone cuts you off. It's like it's hard to not just like yell a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just tell myself when that happens is okay. They're obviously might be having a bad day, or they're in a rush, or
Yeah.
or they're just mean, and there's nothing you can do about that in your situation. People feel protected in their little cars, and sometimes it brings out the worst in people. So
Yeah. So what made you like end up? So you did the traveling for a good chunk of time. What brought you into like commercials and filmmaking? You're also doing like music videos, right? If I remember
yeah, I
correctly.
wouldn't say music videos are my forte. I do like them if the artist is right, and
Mm.
I like the song. So that's a little bit just the kind of side fun projects I like doing.
Yeah.
My goal is to obviously, not obviously, my goal is to make a short film in
Hmm.
Pakistan. So like that's where I'm heading towards.
Hmm.
Um, Commercials I enjoy doing because one, they're 30 to 60 seconds, and
Hmm.
um, I feel like it's a challenge to make an impactful message within that
Hmm.
time frame for a brand. And
Yeah.
I like that challenge, and it's enough of the cinematic side of being able to make beautiful shots and beautiful framing, and
Yeah.
beautiful storytelling in a compact way. So that's just where I decided I wanted to start.
Yeah.
Where that road takes me, I don't know, and maybe I'll end up being a great commercial, cinematographer or a director, or that path might take me elsewhere. I don't know yet, but that's just where I decided to start.
Yeah. So you just mentioned that you wanted to do a short film in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Why Pakistan in particular?
Well, I traveled to Pakistan last year, and it wasn't my first time, but technically it was my first time because I solo traveled there, and obviously don't have like family there, so you're free to explore a little bit more, and
Mhm.
you get to experience it without the perspectives of your family, taking you places, etc. Like you're just on your own. And
Yeah.
surprisingly, I liked it more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
So, and I say that in not that I had a negative connotation of Pakistan,
Mhm.
but I say that just as from traveling to many countries, I didn't
Mhm.
think it would end up being a place that I would want to go back to. And I often don't go back to countries more than
Yeah.
once. So that being said, I want to go back because obviously I am Pakistani, so I think there was a connection from within that
Mhm.
I felt, and a sense of community that I really appreciated when I was there, and I find that Vancouver specifically lacks a little bit of that,
Mhm.
unless you can find your circle and grow the community that way.
Yeah.
But and I find that it might be a common problem in other places as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of I guess the Pakistani identity piece is, I think, a piece that I like find kind of interesting because, so I guess in we're very similar in that were you born in Pakistan? I think you were, right?
Yeah, in Karachi.
Yeah. So I was born in Karachi as well. I think my family moved here when I was like 3 years old, right? And I've never gone back, but I don't know if I like necessarily connect with like my like Pakistani identity as much. Like I feel very like American outside of like watching Bollywood films.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we spend so much time trying to fit in,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I don't think. I think that's like a need for like belonging. And that when you grow up in America and Western countries, you're not around a lot of Pakistanis, and you're trying to fit into the culture.
Mm-hmm.
You want to eat the same food they do. You don't want to get made fun of. Like
Yeah.
all these things make you shy away from your culture and your identity. And
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with being American, and there's nothing wrong with being Canadian or Pakistani or any other culture.
Yeah.
Um, I think deep down, it just comes from a place of belonging and wanting to feel loved. And I think
Yeah.
people cope with being wanting to be loved by trying to fit in, and that was a big part of my discovery, and to be like, I don't want to fit in, I want to be me, and I am
Mm-hmm.
Canadian, I am Pakistani, I'm a filmmaker. Like, all these things attribute to who Zeeshan is.
Yeah.
So that realization of connecting with your Pakistani side is
Mm-hmm.
for you, and if you never do, like, you don't need to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
It's just, who is Zayn? If Zayn's um, an American who identifies himself as American, and his parents were born in Pakistan, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's who Zayn is. Like, you don't need
Yeah.
to tap into anything else as long as you're happy. But for me, the past few years, I realized how important heritage is, and how important
Mm-hmm.
community is, and how important my Pakistani background was to me. Because the
Mm-hmm.
older I get, the more I had wished, like, oh, I wish I spoke Urdu better, and I
Yeah.
wish I knew more about Pakistani's history, and
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like I know more about Canada and America than I do about like the country I was born in. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's my own self discovery.
With the film that you want, the short film that you want to do there, do you have like an idea of what message or what story or what you kind of want to tell?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a personal story. I haven't planned out like any script or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've have a few ideas, but I just want it to flow and come when it comes.
Hmm.
So we'll see. And there's no rush on making that film. Like if it's this year, next year, like I don't know, but I want to make sure it's right and feels right. And but it will be something personal. Like I find that those films do the best is when it hits home to you.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know if that will be my first short film or if I'll practice making a film here first.
Mm.
So yeah, we'll see.
What ends up being like your creative process when you get like a new project or when you're like starting a commercial or something? What ends up being the way that you go from like it getting the job or getting the project and then taking it to the end?
Yeah, I mean, so right now I'm just starting out. So luckily, I have made over the years quite a few contacts. So I
Hmm.
reached out to people that I know and said, hey, like, can I make something for your brand?
Hmm.
And I've been very fortunate that they've said yes and they trust me with it. And then right now, a lot of it's just like research, like any other job. You have to research what their brand message is, what type of commercial you want to shoot for them, and then finding reference images and location scouting and pre-production and then storyboarding and then shot listing, then
Hmm.
figuring out what type of camera and lenses and lighting you're going to use, and then shooting and then finding the crew that you need for the shoot day, and then of course comes the editing and the sound design and the color correction. Man, I watched like Dune when it first came out, the second part.
Yeah.
I was so in awe because it was the first time I was watching a movie after I had started my
Hmm.
filmmaking commercial side, and I
Yeah.
realized like, how much work goes into it, and I just couldn't fathom like the amount of work that went into making that film. Like
Yeah.
it like everything from like the costume design to the location scouting to like, and they shot that film like entirely with no extra lights. Like they shot it on location, so they like made this proprietary program to
Hmm.
simulate like where the sun will be on which day, so they can shoot uh, with the sun without any extra lighting. And they
Oh.
like built the roads out into the desert. Like actually, they built the road, and then after they finished filming the entire movie, they took
Hmm.
the roads away. Like they just disassembled all the roads that they
Wow.
built. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely insane. And even watching some of the behind the scenes stuff on of how they like did the sound design was like really neat. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize the amount of work that goes into these stuff, and I think that's also the point is like you don't want people to think about what they just watched. You just want them to feel it, and that's where I'm trying. Like that's what my journey is like, getting so good at it that it just becomes a feeling to the viewer. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like I know, like I grew up with a lot of like sci-fi shows, and I know a lot of them are just like with like Star Trek, they actually just like make like mini replicas of the ship and actually just put it like behind like starry paper or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So the miniature filming is quite popular as well because that's much easier to do. So they make everything small,
Yeah.
and then they just film it with like a special type of lens, and then when you play it back, it looks like it's everything's just normal size.
Yeah.
They did that for like the original Godzilla, like when he's like crushing all the buildings in Tokyo. They just had
Yeah.
a toy figure that was like they animated in stop motion. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff. Right now, the big thing is like these giant screens
Hmm.
instead of a green screen. So
Yeah.
that's what they filmed the Batman on. So it's quite neat, like the tech that's getting implemented and used
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. And as a layman, I know like one of the movies that always like stuck out to me was this granted is on the Bollywood side, but is Sauria. I don't know if you've seen it.
I can't recall it. I might have seen it.
The same director also did Ram Lila.
Braun.
Ram Lila.
I
Sorry.
don't know.
Yeah, sorry. I'm probably also pronouncing Lila very
Yeah, yeah,
weirdly.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's all good.
But it was just I guess like the I feel like the saturation was just like very high in both of those
I
movies,
see.
whereas like you had just like the Sauria was just like a everything was blue, right?
Right.
And everything like the way that everything got like shot is that it was just like different tonalities of blue, and it was just like very interesting to see like a film that the way that it used color wasn't like it felt like kind of a supernatural view of color rather than like what you see on your day to day basis.
Yeah, I mean, color has a big implication on feelings. Like it invokes certain type of feelings, and you'll notice like horror movies, like obviously don't use a lot of color. Like everything's quite muted. Like everything that they're
Yeah,
wearing, they're not wearing like bright sunny colors. So everything is very intentional. People don't realize like everything is intentional. Like they're not filming at like a sunny, bright house. Like the house is often muted colors, dark gray, blue, like dark blue, because those colors invoke a certain type of feeling on screen, and that's all psychological. It's quite fascinating.
do you have a like a favorite movie in terms of like those like I guess what would be considered maybe more like artistic or more like of those like unique kind of shots or styles?
Honestly, recently, I think the Batman was so beautifully shot,
Yeah,
and there's also this TV series called Shogun that recently came out.
yeah,
And man,
yeah.
I just like the cinematography on those is just phenomenal.
Hmm.
Like the ability to like shape your light, and the wardrobes, the colors, like all that stuff like makes it something so beautiful. But regardless of how it looks, at the end of the day, if it doesn't have a good story, it's not going to do well. The
Yeah,
story is the most important thing, and that's the thing people connect with,
yeah,
and it's obviously the most difficult thing as well.
yeah.
So obviously that's the job of a director, to take the
Mhm,
script and then
mhm.
turn it into a visual masterpiece. Like, yeah.
So, do you have any like really where like the story has kind of made up for like lackings in the film quality, or do you have like any that like stick out?
Um, Man, that's tough. Like most movies that I have liked are often done with good cinematography, because I judge it all, like the story, the
Yeah.
cinematography, the lighting. But honestly, I would say like a lot of Bollywood movies previously wouldn't really be cinematic. Like most Bollywood movies
Mhm.
that you watch, like for example, like Veerzar, I absolutely loved,
Yeah.
and that had a really good story, and that made me cry. And
Yeah.
so there is stuff that
I think
has
that might be the only Bollywood movie I ever actually like shed tears for.
yeah, yeah, no, it was good. Um, so yeah, I don't particularly remember. It's been a while since we've seen it, but I don't particularly being like, oh my god, the cinematography in this movie was so good.
Hmm.
But the story was good, and the acting was good, and the music was good. So there is other aspects of it. So
Hmm.
it's not just about cinematography. Cinematography is like the masala that you put on to your food. Like it just adds to it. So if you have
Hmm.
great cinematography, then it makes it even better. But it's not gonna make the recipe good or bad. It's just gonna add to the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of the like, films that I've really liked probably actually would be qualified as like bad cinematography overall. Like I've seen like a lot of like really weird like kind of cult classics like Equilibrium with Christian Bale.
Right, right.
Uh, yeah, I think it feels like a very like B-rated movie when you watch it, but I just absolutely like love the combination of like Fahrenheit 451 and 1984.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, whether something is good or bad is subjective, right? To each
Yeah.
person. Like, and as long as people enjoy the movie and the director and the crew put their heart into it, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, I guess with like the concept of like putting your heart into it, like I think one of the big like big button topics is AI, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think about like AI kind of entering into the like filmmaking sphere?
Yeah, I mean, I love AI. I use it quite frequently, and I had this conversation with a friend the other day. Like, AI is not gonna replace us, at least yet. But it's been the same since the beginning of time. Like,
Mhm.
you know, before humans were like hunter gatherers, and then
Yeah,
farming came along, and all the hunter gatherers are like, well, what are we gonna do if the
yeah,
food's just being grown here now? We don't have to go look for it. And
yeah,
then the same thing happened like during the Industrial Revolution, like, and then
yeah,
the automobile industry,
mhm,
and then the machines replaced all the people in the auto industry. and
Yeah.
then the internet age came and replaced the X amount of jobs. So like this is just another one of those shifts, and humanity is great at adjusting and
Mhm.
adapting. So I think it will replace jobs that allow humans to be more creative or more sophisticated.
Mhm.
How it relates into film, like, yeah, I think AI will be used to make scripts, like check over scripts and
Mhm.
add in eventually images and replace maybe visual effects artists, or at least aid them.
Yeah.
So it's just the way you look at the looking glass. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? That's up to you,
Yeah.
and how you want to use it. It's often the people that don't adapt that get left behind. And reading this book right now that talks about companies that have risen and fallen, and how
Mhm.
you really have to stay ahead when a technology comes in. Otherwise, you're just going to get replaced by X technology and X company that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's been like so there's like the privacy slash like intellectual like theft side of like AI, and then there's also the like I think it was called Sora that OpenAI came out with,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was they were able to create like kind of just
It,
incredibly
utopia.
realistic video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. I think it's cool. I think
yeah,
it's neat. I mean, that whole privacy thing is, I mean, that's another topic, and I don't know much
yeah,
about it. So yeah, it's very controversial.
yeah. I've I guess like with like I guess the art that you've like created, do you have like do you have like a feeling of like wanting to leave like a legacy behind, or like kind of
No, I personally don't. I just like to enjoy life and
mhm,
put out what I put out, and
mhm,
whether there's 3 people who watch it or 3,000 people who watch it,
yeah,
it's for me to create and for me to share it is not a part of why I do it. Obviously, sharing and people liking
mhm,
it and getting that little dopamine hit, like
yeah,
we've just adapted to that whole social norm, but that
mhm,
doesn't make the reason why I do it important. I do it
yeah,
for me because
mhm,
it challenges me. I can express myself, and that's why
yeah,
I think that's why we're here. It's to connect with yourself, which is just connecting with the universe and
yeah.
expressing yourself in whatever way you find it best to do that.
I mean, I think one of the things that I kind of found like amazing about like your so I visited you like I think it's been like 8 months or
Yeah, yeah,
so.
brother's
Yeah.
wedding.
So yeah. So I one of the things that I thought was just kind of like was kind of amazing was the way that you set up your house,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like it felt like I guess I've never entered into like someone else's space and it feeling like I was entering in like someone's space, right? Like I feel like most houses that I kind of enter in feel like fairly generic,
yeah,
and
yeah,
even like with the background that you have like right now, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
you ended up building all that yourself, right?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if people can see, but yeah, it's quite custom. But yeah, I did everything by myself. It was hell, for lack of a better word. But yeah, I'm a big believer in, like, your environment is an extension of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not always, but particularly
Mm-hmm.
for me, I like having a space that embodies who I am, because
Yeah.
I feel comfortable there.
Mm-hmm.
It's where I spend most of my time. And if I'm spending most of my time there, I want to make sure it nourishes me, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not taking energy from me,
Mm-hmm.
that it helps me feel safe and nurtured and or creative. Like, so it just depends what room I'm in. But yeah, I've been very intentional with the stuff that I buy, and the colors that I choose, and yeah, I think it's important. Maybe it's not for most people. I listened to this podcast, and he talks about how, like, there's also people who dedicate their entire energy towards, like, a discovery, like let's say a scientist who's like just
Hmm.
caught up in his work, and he doesn't have time to take care of his environment because he's so focused on achieving
Yeah.
his scientific discovery. So there's
Hmm.
also aspects of that where that may not be true. You may walk into someone's house and it's not as clean or organized or whatever it
Hmm.
might be, but that could be for a variety of reasons. Like maybe they just spend most of their time working or
Hmm.
studying or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I think it varies person to person. For me, I spent a lot of time nurturing every single room that I have and making sure that I'm in a space that I'm happy with, and obviously like my both my all my brothers and I are quite organized and clean, and that's
Yeah.
just the way we grew up because my mom was always cleaning when we were younger, so that just got embodied into us. So we both of us kind of have a space that's more minimal and clean all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's kind of it is I think pretty interesting on like how I guess how like expressive but also meticulous it can be at the same time, right?
Yeah, no, it takes a lot of energy. Like
Yeah.
you really have to put a lot of thought into it. You have to, for anything in life, you have to give energy to receive energy back.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of energy into my space, and I'm continuously still doing that, and to the point where sometimes I'm just like like it drains me.
Mm-hmm.
But everything you do in life is a long-term investment, or it should be at least.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm doing something, I think about not just is this going to benefit me next week? Is
Yeah.
this going to benefit me next year or in the next 3 years? So that's how I think. I think in the long term always, and whether I want to invest in something, whether it's my space or a project, I think I try to think long term.
Do you think that that's something that like you kind of extracted from like kind of filmmaking specifically, or is that do you think that like was something that you had that you kind of injected into your like filmmaking? Because like one of the reasons. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I wouldn't say that has to do with filmmaking, but it is something I inject into filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it was more of a life lesson
Mm-hmm.
that happened to me.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think the most important thing you can do in life is invest in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you invest in yourself, then you can start taking care of others. Because if you don't take care of yourself and invest in yourself, then it's very difficult to take care of other people. Not
Yeah.
impossible, but it's much easier and much easier to do that when you invest in yourself first. So that's my recommendation: is to invest in yourself first. Then once that pot is full, you'll start overflowing and
Mm-hmm.
filling up other people's pots, whether it's your space or whether it's people or whether it's your job. But life is a lot more enjoyable when you're
Mm-hmm.
taken care of, and no one's going to take care of you except you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, slightly. This might slightly switch the topic, but I think
That's
it
okay.
like connects in the long run. Do you watch anime? I
Yeah, I
don't
love
actually.
anime. Yeah, I love anime.
Have you seen JJK?
Yes,
Jujutsu
I have.
Kaisen?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. So there's a Mahito, which is the soul.
Yeah, the villain. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like one of the conversations that he has with forgetting the villain name, but with Geto is like their like individual powers is what determines how they like end up viewing life in general, right? So like Mahito, his since his power comes from the soul, he views as the soul as the like thing that governs everything.
Right.
Whereas like the guy who's embodying Geto's body, his is belief that the body kind of controls everything. So he views everything as if the body is kind of controlling it,
Yeah.
right? So I was thinking it was maybe I was thinking that might be like kind of a similar thing where like because I feel like there's so much planning and like outward things that you have to do for a shot in filmmaking to work that because that's like the realm that you kind of live in, then you see that in like the other aspects of your life as well, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I think it's the opposite for me. I think I pour that into filmmaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any like I guess in terms of like kind of influence or like inspiration, are there like any people that have like really been your kind of like driving factor?
Yes, there have been, but let's skip this question because I'll get emotional.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, good
um,
question.
yeah. Um, is there, I guess, with this might also kind of be an emotional question as well, so let me know if you want to
No.
skip it. But like, is there anything that you've like found like particularly challenging about kind of like the journey you've gone through so far, or anything that you like just have had like a hard time like coming to terms with, or just like physically has been like challenging?
Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about, when I was working a lot in the wedding industry
Mm-hmm.
and how that kind of overtook my life. Um, I was in a situation where a lot of the people that I worked with like weren't happy with who I was like as a person, and that led to some very difficult conversations and difficult relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and I also like physically wasn't healthy, and I was also like losing my hair, like at 25, 26, like all these things are quite early for that to happen, but it was just the amount of stress and the
I've
amount of
had a
huh?
bald spot since 22.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's also genetics, right? But like
Yeah.
for me, I had a full set of hair, and all of a sudden, like one year, I'm just losing it all. Like, um, and I was also very unhealthy at the time, and I was like losing relationships, and I was overworking, and I was stressed out, and like all these things were happening to me that I was getting very frustrated with. And instead of looking at like I was the one that was causing these problems, I would look at everyone else that was like causing these problems. Like it wasn't me. And that's obviously your ego trying to tell you like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You're doing everything right. Like look how hard you're working. Look how successful you are. Like but in reality, that's just like building your ego even more.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful all that happened to me because without it, I would have gone on this self destruction, self inflated route. So it
Mhm.
really took like a powerful punch to the gut for
Mhm.
me to pause and start over and start looking inwards. And I was very fortunate that I had a friend who was very kind to me at that time, and kind of guided me down the right path of like, hey, this is what's being said about you, and this is what's
Mhm.
going on, and I think you should take some time to start loving yourself and doing some work and some healing, and yeah, and yeah, that was a very challenging time in my life, but I'm very grateful for it. Not in the moment, but when I'm
Mhm.
looking back at it, it was
Yeah.
important switch that happened for me.
Yeah. And I guess kind of as like a maybe as a final question, do you have any advice that you would give someone kind of coming up right now, since you're in your 30s, maybe someone that's like in their late teens, early 20s?
Yeah, I would just say do what you truly love and that's authentic to you. Um, Everyone's situation is different, so um, I think first and foremost is taking care of yourself so you can take care of others, whether that's financially or emotionally or physically, whatever it might be, is to learn to take care of yourself. And once you kind of do that, then it becomes a lot easier to be who you are authentically.
Yeah.
And I think once you learn how to do that, then life becomes a lot easier in terms of learning how to go with the flow instead of kind of resisting and doing stuff that doesn't align with you. And whether you're an artist or a banker, or an athlete, I think that applies to just all genres of life. And yeah, just be in touch with your emotions. It helps.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Z.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for having me. It
Yeah,
was a lot of fun. Zain Al Abidin.
yeah. I guess do you want to shout out your like socials maybe, or like what's your YouTube channel or
Yeah, sure.
Instagram?
Yeah, my Instagram is ZTV, so that's ZeeTeevee. And then my YouTube is Zeeshan Danani. Um, and that's it. You can find me on there if you're interested.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, I'm gonna